Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to the Hardcore Metal Detecting Radio Show. I'm Derek Asklar and Craig Talley's on the line there. We're going to be hosting the show tonight. Our call-in number is 352-504-4017 if you'd like to get in on a conversation or start up a new topic. Usually I don't really know what I'm going to want to talk about until a few minutes before the show, but I'm calling it a deep topic because it really is. Essentially, it's sound. A sound that our metal detectors make. You hear Craig and I talk often about certain detectors having what we call, or what is called, nuance in tones. As far as, I think I'm speaking for Craig here too. And, we believe that, your sight is good, but audio is better. You can pick up on differences in audio depending on what tone a machine uses. It's very hard to explain a nuance, Craig. We know that. We've tried to do it in the past. But that's one area of a metal detector that I don't know how much they really do testing on, is the beep or the tone that they use on these detectors, whether it's pretty much how they just pick one that they like. There's several different kinds of the way response you get from metal detectors depending on what brand they are. I'm just using the example as the E-Track Minelab. I had a hard time as a detectorist wrapping my mind around the way that the tone was and discerning. I don't know. It wasn't nice for me to hear the way that machine was. A lot of people do like it. It's a great machine. I'm not picking on a machine here. I'm just using it as an example. Where you have other machines like the Saro, of course, the Bliss Tool, because I've used it so much, where we can pick out of a single tone, pick out nuances that tell us copper, brass, silver, these aren't the only machines that do this. I just didn't know if the quality of the speakers, especially in headphones, Craig and I barely told Craig about this before the show because I wanted an honest opinion about a lot of this stuff. And if you guys have an idea, please call in. But if you take a $30 pair of headphones versus a pair of, we'll just say Killer Bees, because that's what I'm using right now, the quality of the sound enables me to discern targets better. Whisper tones, slight imperfections in the way that the tone is, whether it's a spit at the end or what have you. Now, not everybody can hear these tones, these imperfections or these nuances in a tone. I mean, Craig mentioned before the show, like 30% of people are audio. Most people are visual. Thus the screens and everything, but your hearing is more sensitive in most cases. It's almost picture like a dog whistle. A human being can't hear that, a dog can. But they isolated a frequency or a tone. I don't know what the exact word would be for it, but there has to be one that is better for most people to hear, and to use that particular tone, whether it's bassier or has more treble, whatever, to help us discern or identify a target, or even be more sensitive to very deep items. We know this happens because we do get what we call a whisper tone. It's a solid, repeatable signal. It's very quiet. We know from experience, that Craig and I do, that it's just an extremely deep item, and if you're not listening for it, if you don't have a good set of headphones and you're not paying attention, you're going to miss it. But there has to be a study or something. Somebody, I don't know if anybody's ever done a study on the actual sound that these metal detectors make, or any item really that you're depending on audio to go by. And I think this would be Craig, for a company, whether it be, Minelab, Garrett, Whites, or whatever, I don't know how they discern or decide what tone they're putting on their machines. But I think it's a good place to start to look for, when they're making new machines, to come up with, do a study on it, whatever, what is easier for people to hear as human beings. to make their machine better. I don't know if this is like a sound card or what have you. It's kind of a really deep subject, and it's hard to explain. So, I'm going to hand it over to you, Craig, a little bit here. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, I think I'm on the right track with this, and I'd love to test a machine that they've done this with. I'm all about seeing what a machine will do and everything, but I think audio, it's so much in my hunting world, my detecting world, and I know it is yours too. What are your thoughts on it, Craig?
I almost think it's frequency of the machine. I noticed, I don't know, maybe a year or so after I started hunting, the second machine that I got was a Tone ID machine, and it was a Technetic 7800 Mark II, and took 14 AA batteries.
Oh my God!
And God, that thing was killing me. And the funny thing was the NICADs or whatever they used to have back then, they didn't give it as much power. It decreased the depth when you use the NICADs. But anyway, I could go over I'd get like a dime signal on the meter, and I could tell if it was a clad dime or a silver dime by the what I call like a brightness in the tone.
Right.
It gave, it gave a high, this thing had like variable, like it made a little bump for a nickel, and then it went all the way up to, real high pitched for $1. So, it would make a high tone, but within that high tone, I could tell that it was, I can't remember what frequency that machine ran on, but and then I had a Fisher CZ6, and it had this weird thing. It had like coin and then dime and above on the meter. It was kind of the weirdest meter, and it just didn't make any sense. It was basically a coin hunting machine, but when I went over any kind of silver, I could tell exactly, it was going to be a silver coin. It just had that, it just stood out to me. But I've actually tested this on friends and other people. Like one time I heard a guy, I heard the nuance through his headphones, and I knew he was going over a silver quarter with a Tesoro Eldorado. And I'd used one, and I remembered the sound it made, and so I said, I called over to him. I said, "Yeah, you're going over a silver quarter right there." And he looked at me like I was crazy, and so he digs a silver quarter up, and he thought, oh, you were just lucky, And I go, no, I wasn't lucky. So we ended up putting. I told him, I got two big leaves, and I said, silver, put one under one, one under the other. I won't look. Test me as many times as you want. I'll hit it every time. So I did. And, he couldn't believe it. He just he could not hear anything. And I kept trying to explain to him there is something in the tone that's, to me, it sounds like it's a little brighter. It just stands out. It doesn't do that on any other, Later on, I had a Nautilus. It was a two-tone machine. You had in my in my right ear, I think I had all metal. In the left ear, you had discrimination. And if I went over like anything brass, I could tell immediately it was brass. By the nuance of the signal. What other ones? The Explorer, the Minelab Explorer, that thing had unbelievable nuances, and it was multi-frequency. I could go over a silver coin. I knew it immediately. It was a silver coin. I didn't even have to look. I never really looked at the meter. I could just go, oh, it's a silver coin. I could hear, mid-range. I could tell a button from, bottle cap or pull tab. and it was really funny. Down in the really low range, a lot of people would not dig those signals, and they were. I remember I got the little these tiny little cufflinks. It was King Charles II. It was 1660 to 1685, and I think it gave like a 2 or a 3 bump on the Explorer when I went over it, and I knew it wasn't iron. I mean, whenever that machine went over something that was not iron, it had a certain tone to it, and even that number, it just sounded good.
Right.
And I dug one, and then I got one next to it, maybe 6 inches away. But it's I kind of can hear it in the somewhat in the dais. The dais has good, especially in the full tones.
Mm-hmm.
I know I could go over a quarter, and I don't even have to look at the meter. I know it's a silver quarter with that dais.
Well, Craig, you've kind of said a lot right here because I've been listening to your explanations, and I mean, I want you all to think about how do you describe a sound? How do you describe a beep from your metal detector? I mean, Craig's used, bright. We've used, low. We've used, how can you describe a nuance? But in every detector, I'm just saying Minelab, have multiple tones, especially, are those individual tones, are there tones that are better for our hearing to use instead of the ones that they are using, or a White's or a Bliss tool or whatever? On the Bliss tool, I have the ability to change the tone sound, the high pitch, low pitch of it. I have found in my hunting style, if I keep it to the low side, I can discern more nuance than turning the tone up to a higher pitch. And it's harder for me to just do that, or a bassier is easier. And it's a really deep topic. I just think it's a way of looking something, and it comes down to the type of speakers they use, the kind of headphone speakers they use, the machine itself, how it makes the sound, or they come up with the sound off the board itself, to recognize a piece of metal of some kind in the ground. Is that a generic, not saying generic, Craig, but you know what I'm saying? Is that just a standard, okay, we're going to buy this circuit that's going to make this sound? Or is it something that they have designed to be more adapt for us to hear? And in making a new machine with that kind of technology in it, are we going to be able to hear deeper items or more sensitive to distinguishing items? Because I've always believed that hearing is more sensitive. You hear stuff all the time. You hear a board creak, you hear whatever. Seeing something, you might see a flash of light, you know what I mean, or like a strobe light or whatever. But visually we're fast, but by audio we're a lot faster as a species. So when we listen to music we know the difference between good music, bad music. We know some people could tune by ear pianos and stuff like that. It's very difficult to do. But as a general, at the average person, is there certain tones that are more informational to us when we hear them? Whether it's a flutter tone, I mean, these are kind of weird terms, but it's the only thing I can come up with in my head. Same tone, but it's a flutter. But in that flutter tone, when you go over copper or brass or iron or whatever, would it change the tone and give it a nuance that's more noticeable to your ear?
Well, I think the obvious, the two metals that actually maybe three, that to me give the most nuances. I really haven't heard a lot of nuances in the other metals. Is silver, copper, and brass. I've been able to discern those. Like with Bliss tool, I can't tell silver nuance at all.
Right.
And I also think it's also like, I do more relic hunting. I don't do as much coin hunting, so I'm not digging silver coins all the time. I haven't dug that many. The ones I've dug are fairly old, but I just don't dig. I dig mostly, copper coins.
Right.
And so, I could tell a copper and brass with the Bliss tool really easily.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never really, used it like a coin hunting machine. Like I've used the Deus more as a coin hunting machine. I can hear those little squeaks and,
well, that too, a squeak,
high pitch, but that's tone ID also. But it's a pretty good indication. But I like tone ID. I think it gives you much more information on what you're going to dig, and
right.
you're more apt to. Like I've dug signals that came back really good in one direction, but not in the other. But they gave a real good squeak in that, and even sometimes would pop up, good on the meter in that one direction. Those are kind of signals I dig.
Right.
I dug one in the yard. the other day, and it turned out to be a deep, big iron broken buckle, probably from the 1850s or 1860s. It might have been used in the Civil War. But, probably was, the way it looked. But, that one gave me a real, it was probably, 10 or 11 inches deep. I was using the Equinox, and I got, I just kept getting that squeak, and it pop up on the meter, like 32, stuff like that, 30, 32, 31. So I thought, might as well give it a chance,
Yeah.
I thought it, even if it's iron, it could have been a piece of a shell or something. And I don't mind an iron buckle like that. It's pretty cool. It's still a relic.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And, and I'm also learning the machine. I've had the machine about 11 months. But
well, too, Craig. Well, I was going to say, you mentioned machines. You can buy, I don't care, $800 machines across the board. 5 of them, and from experience, when you first pick up a machine, audio wise, they can be, every one of them can be different tone, different pitch, different whatever. And do we pick up on a certain tone better than the other 4? Out of the 5, you pick up on one better than the others, having not used any of them before. Is that, to me?
Well, it's like it's right out of the box. I started digging stuff. At the second signal, I dug a token, and that
right.
That next, I was going out and digging one good target every day. I dig a few pieces of trash, and then I'd hit a really good target. I was getting like eagle buttons, a couple flat buttons. I was hitting wheat pennies.
Mm-hmm.
That I missed. With the Bliss tool and all the other machines, the Deus and everything.
Right.
So I was impressed right off the bat. I was telling people, I said, I don't even know what I'm doing, and I'm finding stuff.
Yeah.
I said, a couple times, I thought, man, that really sounds good. One of the funny ones was I heard, some of the people were saying they never dug signals below 11. I think it was. And I got a signal, it kept reading like 910, 910, 910. I kept going, man, it just sounds too good to leave in the ground. And it was a flat button, 1800 to 1820, British flat button with the eagle on it.
Yeah.
So, it's like, I got the lowest signal so far I got was a 3. And it gave a solid bump in every direction, 3, 3, 3, and just real low bump, but it was repeatable, exactly the same in both directions. And it was a little square lead. And it looked like it might have had something on one side, and then it looked like it had attachments on the other side, but it read 3 even out of the hole. So
yeah,
I dug a button that read 5. It was tiny, but it was a button. I have to take those King Charles cufflinks out and see if what they read on the meter. I know that I remember with the Equinox, it was a real low reading on it, but it's worth it, especially if you're in a real old area. I could see if you're in a trashy park or something, you don't want to dig a lot of those kind of signals, but knowing the nuances, would help you cherry pick if you're going for silver and stuff.
Oh, exactly.
You're going for use in a park, and
I've even had it happen on when I had the Weiss machines. Well, it wasn't that long ago where quarters and bottle caps were almost undiscernible. I mean, I know when I had the Weiss machine, it would read up just about the same on the meter, 86, I think it was. And we at the time, that's when I had the White Spectrum V3, and there was all these adjustments in there, and they had these analysis screens or whatever you want to call it, those wavelengths, and they actually came up with one that actually would tell you a difference between a bottle cap and a quarter at 5 inches down, 6 inches down, something like that. Trying to, not saying to hunt by sound only. It's just so many times I hear guys say it on videos and stuff. Well, it wasn't going to read, really dig it because it wasn't reading up real good on the meter, but it just sounded so good. You're hearing a nuance in something is what's going on. You're hearing the good with the real information is, even though your detector can't tell you what it is. That's something that these new machines have done. I think, like with the Bliss tool, you can line up, you can bury quarter bottle caps wherever you want to, and I can tell you every single time, almost 100% of the time, which one's a bottle cap, which one's a quarter, just by pinpointing and by sound. And that before the Equinox, or really the Deus, I don't know how the Deus does because I haven't used one very much at all, but you could tell these differences, even if they came up with one that could use sound as a discrimination tool in a way for iron. I mean, for a relic hunter, that'd be great. You want to know iron, you want to know good stuff, non-ferrous stuff, your silver, copper, brass, what have you. If there was a discernible, there is in a way. I mean, you get a spit at the end. I mean, a lot of these guys, trying to describe this stuff is like almost impossible. And that's why I thought when Tim called in and talking about, we each had a set of headphones for the detector he was using. So I was hearing exactly what he was hearing. And that was a good teaching tool for me. And for him too. We learned a lot that day just by doing that. You have two opinions about what it is. You're both hearing the same, we'll call it imperfection in the sound. Or perfection, I guess. It's a deep topic, but I wanted to fry your mind tonight, Craig, is what I wanted to do. But I like to see him come up with I'm sure there's some kind of study like that, just for hearing, general hearing, what tones are the best, not just, put, these.
Well, I've always researched this stuff because I'm totally auditory, and
right.
I didn't even know, people visualized when I was a kid, and I finally figured out why I can't do math. It's because I can't see, the formulas and stuff.
Right.
But it's like I have a hard time explaining that to somebody that is totally visual. So I think I'm more attuned to that. Probably I probably because I use hearing more than I do vision. And when I first started metal detecting, when I first started relic hunting, actually not coin hunting, but this guy was going out. We were both using the same machine, Toltec 100, same coil.
Right.
He was, we were both getting about the same amount of bullets, but he was getting buttons, a lot more buttons than I was. And one day I got a signal and I didn't see any meter reading, and I thought, man, that just sounds good. Let's see what it is. And it was a deep eagle button. And I thought, that's what he's doing. He's not looking at the meter. And I'm passing all these signals that aren't reading on the meter because they're too deep to read on the meter, but I can hear them. So, you know, from then on, I didn't trust meters at all, you know, and I had, you know, I've helped so many people over the years. I tried to teach at the club, you know, we had like 140 members, and people used to say, man, I was in that area, you know, and you know, how do you get all that stuff, you know, after all those people there? And I said, well, you know, a lot of the signals didn't read on the meter. And they go, well, why do you dig them? And I go, because they sounded good.
Because there's something there.
You know?
Yeah.
And it didn't sound like iron. But I said, you know, this is a spot that had a lot of good stuff. It had a lot of good coins and stuff came out of that spot. And I said, you know, so I figured there's got to be more deeper ones there. Mm-hmm. And I just do the same thing that I did when I'm in the woods. You know, I got so where I used Nautilus didn't have a meter, the Bandito didn't have a meter, Bliss Tool didn't have a meter. Yep. I actually almost prefer machines like that when I'm in, you know, just doing relic hunting.
Right. Well, even with the Bliss Tool, you know, we discovered early on, I think you did too, but we have not only your tone that you could pick, then you have your threshold that works more as a sensitivity, but using the silencer with it, it creates a more of an eruption of sound, working with the threshold, working with the tone and the frequency, where it gives you more information in the tone itself. I mean, it's just the eruption of sound when you're going over a good target compared to, you saw it in your yard, Craig. Remember when I was at your yard, you know, me and Pauline were up there, and I'm going over, and all of a sudden you went over a good target, like that bullet, and it just stood out amongst everything. Now, a Bliss Tool is a single tone machine. It doesn't have any other, you know, high tones, low tones, it's one tone. But I can go over a yard that sounds like a minefield, and I can get my coil, whoa, that's something good. Got to go back to that and swing over it. And, you know, we ended up digging a bullet at 4 inches down in Craig's yard, which was amazing enough because Craig's hunted it for 1,000,000 years. But it was just so easy. And maybe it was well, you heard it too, Craig, because you said, wait a minute, that sounded good. You know, it's auditory, you know, and wrapping your mind around that.
It's funny that front yard never really yielded a whole lot of stuff, you know, until you were using it. You used the 7x9 inch coil,
right?
And I'd never used it in the yard. And after I saw what you did with it, I went back over the yard. It was amazing. I was able to go under the power lines with that OR mode and stuff. But
it's almost like it picks it out. It almost gave you, and I noticed it too when I was making my test garden here at my house. You know, I was trying to get all the targets out of that particular area, and I have it on film. I think I posted it up. It's just a whisper tone, and you know, you could actually hear it over the video. It was such a clear tone, but it was so soft. It was like something was whispering. You know, that's why we call it a whisper tone. But it ended up being a piece of brass. God, Craig, it had to have been at least 14, 15 inches down, and it was half the size of a dime. But it was coming through so solidly, I knew something was there, and I was able to catch it on video. You know, a lot of these things, we can't do that. I mean, the microphones in these, you know, phones and cameras, they're getting better, but they've improved the visual, the pixels and all that other stuff, but the audio, the microphone, what it can pick up, boy, it's night and day, you know, with some of these phones. I mean, it's kind of like with the camcorders, you know, inside the camcorders, if you put one of these Rode mics on there on your camera, you know, it has the windsock on it. It sounds like you're right up on somebody, you know, right there, and you could be standing 5 feet away, where if you did it without that microphone, it's almost like you have to yell at the camcorder for people to hear you. You know, so, you know, sound plays a big part in a lot of this. You know, speakers too. I mean, a quality speaker, if you have a low range detector or low price detector, like we're just going to use, you pay $59 for a metal detector. Well, there is definitely going to be a lot of difference between that and a $600 metal detector, just in parts they use, speakers, that kind of thing. That's why we always say, don't spare the expense on headphones. I mean, anytime you can hunt with headphones, use them, because you're missing so much if you're just trying to go from the speaker to the detector, depending on which one you're using.
Well, it's like this gaming headset I got. I've actually seen 2 random articles where people were saying they were really good. And I'm like, it's funny trying to get information on the stuff with the microphones, but they were actually saying that one guy was saying that they're starting to say that using it with an iPhone like I'm doing is what some people are doing now.
Right.
But the sound of these headphones is just unbelievable. It's like
the quality is way up there.
It almost sounds like surround sound, and there's I've been listening to just music through them, and it's really good. I was really impressed because I've had some really top of the line headphones over the years, and these things just blow them away.
Yeah. I like these Killer Bee headphones. These are, the ones I'm using for detecting.
Yeah.
I did have a pair of, and actually Tony gave me a pair, buddy I used to hunt with down here, Cross headphones, stereo headphones. They weren't really metal detecting headphones, but the bassiness of the sound coming out was so good.
I had some Koss, and
that's what it is.
They didn't have the spiral, on the headphone line, but I used them on the Bliss Tool a lot. I used them on the Equinox from the years. I mean the Explorer, but they were good sounding. They're like stereo headphones for audio.
Yeah, Steve Adams is on chat, Craig, and he says, I explain the sweet sounds the same as squirrel hunting. When you see a limb move while squirrel hunting, and you look really close, sometimes it turns out to be a blue jay jumping around in the trees. But when it's a squirrel, it's a squirrel. Same with good, sweet, smooth sounds on the machine. Yeah, it's just it audio. You can hear stuff, imperfections, stuff that's out of the ordinary, just in everyday life. I mean, something that doesn't fit. It's not normal. It could be the sound of your car makes. You always have those rogue sounds. Like your car might start making. I don't care if it's I've had some that was a squeaky piece of plastic in the dashboard, or strange. But you pick up on them, you're so sensitive to them. Imperfections or stuff that doesn't belong. It's the same way with metal detecting. You're picking the nuances, kind of like that. It's something that it's repeatable on that same kind of target, whether it's silver or what have you. But the items that read up in the same range, like zinc and silver, read up pretty much the same. When you get the zinc lids, Craig, from the mason jar lids and stuff. It's and you almost can't discriminate them out. It's very close, but I can hear a difference in it. So that's probably another mason jar lid. It has a squeal at the end, or a squeak at the end, or a clip, or it's hard to help people unless you're hunting right beside them. I learned this when I was hunting with a med up there in Bulgaria. I could go over a target, something that sounds like I would dig here in the U.S. No, you don't want that. That's iron. That's pig iron or whatever. It's like an impure iron. It has a tin or copper mixed in with it, whatever. He was keen on that. Of course, he made the machine. And, eventually that's where I started getting into sound so much and using it as a discrimination tool to be able to tell what an item is. And, yeah, the Bliss Tool, it's real good on brass and copper as far as telling once you use the machine. Silver's harder. It really is. But it does. Silver quarter, to me, even nickel and square tabs, I can almost hear a difference, and they're so close on the VDI scale anyways if you were doing it visually, but there is imperfections in them, and it's a very subtle thing. It's not always right because it's not tuned in. You're listening for imperfection. It's very hard to do this, especially if the item is deeper, but it is possible. But you mentioned the Minelab Explorer. I mean, that's another machine that it's digital sound, but it has analog nuance to it. This Equinox, same way. It's digital. It used to be a big deal for me when I bought a metal detector. I like analog sound, and analog sound is essentially, if you had a scale of 1 to 10, analog sound would hit on every single number, where digital sound would be like 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. That's where it's going to hit. But when you got into a 2 or an even number, it was up to the machine to choose whether it was going to be 1 or 3. So you would lose that ability to hit in analog, you're hitting every single number. So it's giving you more information through the sound. That's the way it used to be. But Craig, I think with these processors now that are coming out, and like the Deus and the Equinox and the Quest, and they're somehow mixing those in to give us that range, even though it's digital sound. Mm-hmm.
Well, I also think that the quality of the sound coming through is,
a lot better.
Back in the old days, the speaker wasn't that good. The headphones weren't all that good, but compared to where they are now. And the signal, you're having a pure digital signal now that's coming through that's processed.
Right.
And so it's like a high-end, stereo system instead of a, like a one of those transistor radios up to your ear. That it's a big difference. I mean, I can tell. I mean, it sounds so much better. I mean, it's just, there's no, that's when I started liking that Explorer so much. Mm-hmm. It not only was it deep, but it gave such good, audio. And, if you looked at the numbers, they were pretty good. They would lock on pretty deep for back then. It also had like a XY screen that went from iron to high. It went from low conductor to high conductors, and then it went left to right from like iron to like a silver dollar. Mm-hmm. So it had a little cursor, and it would go up, and if it was a high. I mean, if it went all the way to the right and it was at the bottom, then it was a big piece of iron. But if it was up, at the top, then it was like a silver dollar or a big coin, a big silver coin usually. But it was a pretty accurate if you wanted to use it. But I just listened to the signal, the tones.
Well, even now with the machines almost, and we've talked about this many times in the past shows that. I'm not going to call it AI, but it is in a way with the Bliss tool, and I think you mentioned with the Equinox too, and even the Deus. We get a target that sounded good when we went over it with the Bliss tool, and oh man, that sounds pretty good. But I'm not really sure. I hear something in it, and we would swing the coil faster, and if it was a good target, non-ferrous, it would lock on even harder. It was almost like it was learning the target in a way.
When I figured that out, it was unbelievable.
I use it all the time, But
yeah, it took me it was about the first 2 or 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks that I was hunting, and then I went to this spot and it was hammered, and I went up to this tree, and I got these signals, and it was like a 1940 yard, and it's just this big tree there, but we knew there was Civil War stuff, and there'd been a spur found about maybe 30 or 40 yards back, behind that property, and some bullets and stuff. So I got a signal, and it was it was barely coming back. You know, it was real sputtery. You know, and so I picked up the swing. You know, swung over the signal, and it actually came back louder. You know, and I was like shocked. I was like, wow, that is crazy. It's coming back better. And I dug down, and it was a 3-ringer. It was probably 13, 14 inches deep or more.
It's like it's yeah, and it's strange.
I ended up getting like 13 or 14 bullets, you know, and every one of them was down a foot. I was like worn out after about that machine wore me out, and I was going back to these spots that I hadn't been back in years, that I'd gotten, you know, that I'd gotten good stuff at before, and I was digging. God, it was like the press plate. I dug that thing 16 inches deep, you know, and then, you know, all these guys started, well, Howard and this other friend of mine, Mike, started coming back up there, you know, and they had, you know, they weren't digging much stuff, and I was just digging stuff all around them.
Yeah.
And,
well, it's funny how it does that, though, Craig. With the lock on, you would think logically that, okay, you get a signal. You think that moving slower over the target would allow your metal detector to give you better information. But with the Bliss, when you swing it faster, it locks on. It's like it's learning. It's getting louder, more pronounced, and everything else. And you're talking an item that's extremely deep. It doesn't make sense logically that the machine would be able to do that. You think it would not even pick it up at all. But it would just tell you, it's telling you that, okay, if it starts to break up when you start swinging faster over the target, then you pretty much know it's going to be iron, or it's going to be some kind of metal, but it's not going to be a non-ferrous item, you know, like copper or brass or lead or whatever. It's going to probably be iron. But it's the same thing with the pinpointing on that machine. It pinpointed at the very tip of the coil or the very back of the coil. And when I did that for a med, I buried, you know, I told him, you bury bottle caps and quarters. I'll tell you which everyone is just by pinpointing it. I'll leave it in all metal. I'll tell you exactly what it is. And he didn't believe it until he saw it. And he was shocked because he didn't know his own machine would do that. He's the one that built it and everything. But it would not, if it was a good non-ferrous target, it would pinpoint in the same spot. If you X'd it off, like swinging east to west and mark the ground right where you're getting the signal at, where it's the loudest, the best, and you swing north to south and mark it, it would be in the same spot if it was a coin or non-ferrous item. If it was iron, it would always be about 2.5 to 3 inches off on one of the directions. If you mark it one direction and then you spin and go north and south, it would be 3.5 inches off from that other point. And it was simple. I learned this myself. I mean, and I use it on the beach all the time for bottle caps. I still dig them, and I've never really been wrong with that. And everybody that I've shown to do, I mean, Craig does it too now, but it's learning. It knows it. The way that when we don't know how all this computerized stuff works now. I mean, AI is not that far. I mean, we have a lot of AI stuff out there, anyways. Why wouldn't, with using all these processors, these computer chips, and everything else they're using? I mean, what says the machine can't learn more? I'm not saying it's going to talk to you. If you start hearing your metal detector talk to you, you need to go, take a pill or something. But
well,
it's
it's like, I think it's Moore's law. Every couple of years, everything doubles its speed in memory. It's getting where iPhones are going to be coming with 512 gigahertz of memory.
Right.
But that's because you got so many fast processors. I mean, the processors are getting unbelievable. They got neuro chips now that, like you say, they're like machine learning type chips.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed with the Bliss tool, you can get like a kind of a repeatable signal in the first swing, and then it starts breaking up on the second swing, and then it'll go away completely, and it's iron.
Yeah, it learns.
I've never had a machine that actually, started realizing it was iron, analyze it. Sometimes after the first swing, it disappears.
Right.
If you slow down and go right over top of it, just kind of wiggle over it, you can actually get a good signal on it. But if you just swing over it completely,
mm-hmm.
but all these things are like the total opposite of what I've been used to doing all these years.
Yeah, I know. That's what blew my mind, Craig. It was like, God, and me
You
and
know,
Craig would call each other. And it's like, did you ever do this? Yeah, I've done that. Isn't that weird? It's like,
yeah,
it shouldn't be
well,
doing this.
the first couple months, we were discovering new things almost all the time about the machine. We didn't, it was just, you think there's no meter on it, so there's not a whole lot you can do, but there was a lot you could do.
Even when you remember Hendrix, right,
I,
Craig? The guy Hendrix that would make or whatever tune coils, and he used all these oscilloscopes and everything else, and he came up with everybody was complaining because Bliss didn't have a screen, so he made a lighted screen, and all it had was a bar of green lights and red lights, and when it was a good non-ferrous target, he hooked this all up to the Bliss tool, and it would show you lights as you went over targets for people that maybe couldn't hear very good. And I don't know if he ever went anywhere with it, but even when he was using that, it was like the machine was almost like thinking about it, because on different kinds of targets, different like brass and copper, lead, whatever, the lights would only go up so far. It was weird. I mean, that guy he is like one of those savants when it comes to electronics or something like that. He could make.
He actually made a 7-inch Deus coil.
Yeah, the guy's smart, man.
He actually wired it himself. He went through all this stuff. I mean, the guy must be an engineer or scientist. I was one of the few people that would watch his stuff, and he kept asking me why. And I said, "You remind me of my dad, tinkering with stuff.
Yep.
My dad was a scientist, but he never told me what what his background was. But I haven't heard anything from him in a couple of years. He was probably in his 70s.
Yeah,
but he had this place in Denmark that was this huge estate. I mean, it was gigantic, and there was these silver coins of a certain age that you weren't supposed to dig, and if you did dig them up, you had to turn them in by law.
Really?
And yeah, and it was like that was kind of screwed up, but he'd find all kinds of buttons and stuff, and he was always doing tests, with different programs with the Deus, and he liked the Barco machines. It was before the Nokia became, before the Nokia, but that's the last I've seen of what he was doing. But the guy was always tinkering with the coils. He put ferrite on the coil and glue it on. He would
tune the coil. Yeah, tune the coil.
And he would take a little piece of ferrite and he would keep working with it until he got the sweet spot perfect, and then he would super glue it to the coil.
Mm-hmm.
And man, it was it was unbelievable how he would tune all this stuff. He was just totally meticulous. He could do all wiring the whole coil on this miniature Deus. He took some other 7-inch coil apart and then used that, and then took the other coil apart to see how it worked, and then he had this module that he hooked up, and it was actually mounted on the stem, and then it went down to this little small 7-inch coil, and it worked. It really worked. I mean, he took it out, and he was finding stuff. And I said, man, that is so cool. That guy actually did that,
Yeah, that's why, even the coils now, often talking about that, not that coils aren't good. It's just that the way they produce them, as long as they can pass certain tests on an assembly line, it can do this, it can do this, it can do this. Okay, it's a good coil. It doesn't mean it doesn't mean that the machine and the coils are tuned together even more. I mean, when you get a machine or a coil, I'm saying, I'm just going to say brand A. It doesn't really matter because a lot of them are mass produced anyways. There's always a percentage, like it's 75% to 89% tuned. And that's what, with the Bliss tools, they're within, what, Craig, they got to be 98%. I mean, they're damn close. Each one of them is tuned to the machine. And I can do this. Or if I have runs of machines, runs of coils that are close together, depending on the size coil, because it does. If you have the 7x9 coil, it's relatively easy, and they're going to be pretty much matched up to like 1% of what they would normally be if they were tuned. So it's not enough for a human ear or whatever. Performance-wise, you're not going to notice it. But when you buy I'm going to use Marco Racer or something like that. If they're
almost all the other machines are assembly line. They're
right.
mass-produced.
Not that they're junk or nothing. It's just that they're not tuned. They're all made the same way, and they all I think the Nautilus was the first one I remember where you tune the coil to the machine yourself. And that changed, I guess, with soil and everything else, Craig, didn't it? Or did that remain the same on that machine?
Well, I mean, you ground balance and stuff,
right?
And every once in a while, the coil would go out of balance, but you could send it back, and the guy would fix it.
Right. I think that's why the aftermarket coils probably work a little bit better. Well, they definitely do on like the AT Pro when I had the Tornado coil for it. My God, I mean, the VDI numbers were crap. I mean, it wouldn't, but the sound, when it signaled, it would get you a doggone signal on a dime and really deep. But you wouldn't have a VDI number. But that's because I think the coils they're a lot more, they pay attention to detail because they are an accessory coil. So they're making these coils, probably with a little bit more thought about how they are tuning to the machines. Because, no matter what machine you have, you could have 10 AT Pros, 10 whatever. They're going to tune into those coils a little bit different. And if you had one tuned to it, I would think it, within like what Hendrix did with the Ferrite, get an oscilloscope.
You might be able to do it, pretty much closer now with the more.
Everything. Oh yeah, everything's new
digital,
now.
So
right.
So there's not going to be much variation like there is in the chips. There's probably a little bit of variation in the chips.
Right. Right. And that's quality too. You got. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I walked on you.
Well, I noticed a lot of new machines that are coming out. Got the, they got the battery and the all the electronics and everything, the screen, and just one little handheld thing that goes on the machine.
Oh yeah,
right in the grip. So
well,
I mean, there's no there's no going back to these heavy machines and stuff.
No,
everybody's going to this lighter version, and it's so nice to have. I got this Telenox, coil. I mean, shaft on my machine, and that took another 4 ounces off. But the thing is so stiff when you swing it. It doesn't wobble at all. It's actually stiff.
I think it's pretty neat with like the White's machines. The Spectra V3. Has you have a control box in the back, and there's a battery back there, and everything sliding battery. Then you have the hand where the grip is, and then you have a LCD screen or whatever, and all this information and all these push buttons. Well, it's kind of a heavy machine, not bad heavy. But then you have ones like the Equinox or the Quest, where if you wanted to just get the control box and the battery and everything, it's about the size of a cell phone or smaller. Or like the Deus, it's so small because it's in a coil, isn't it? Well, you have a screen and stuff you can use, but you don't necessarily have to.
Well, you can actually run the whole machine on the headphones, actually.
Right. Oh, yeah, the headphones. That's what I meant. Yeah, it's just amazing the size.
You can just put the program you want in and leave the box at home.
Right.
And run it that way. Mm-hmm. There was actually my friend Jed Dodd, who calls himself Peace Havens. He actually came up with the idea of a mini Deus, and asked Deus if they would, could do something like that, because I think he had an extra coil, and he wanted to get the stem and just the headphones and be able to do it. So they actually started saying that was a great idea, that that would actually be a good idea for people that didn't have the money, because the box is about $400 and something, I think, just for the little box.
Yeah,
it's almost more than cell phones were when they first came out, an iPhone.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
But,
and all these
not
micro
anymore.
solders and everything else they got on them now. I mean, these control boards. I mean, they're pretty intimidating. Open one of these things up and look at it. What the hell are you looking at? You got to. It takes a special person to work on these machines. It's like CB radios, man. I used to run truck over the road, and man, there was guys that could work magic with a CB radio. I mean, I have a CB radio that between the radio and the kicker I think I'm throwing 200 and I got a Ranger radio built-in amplifier or whatever you want to call it, kicker in it. And then I have an external kicker. And when I got them hooked up together, they're pushing 2,200 watts out of it. I mean, I can reach out and hit you with a lightning bolt when we're going down the road, just about, seems like. But, to work on those, it takes a special person, I think. I've seen a lot of I could call them radio shops. Some of these guys are good, okay and everything. But there's some that are just, they got a talent for electronics, and they can make this stuff, do stuff that, and adjust it in certain ways that they just don't have any competition. You want it done right, you take it to them. It's the same way with metal detectors. I mean, there's some people that can work on these things, like Hendrix and well, several others, and I'm sure every company has, technicians that just know their stuff really good about electronics, and it can make repairs and make fixes on these. But I see Deus as the one that's gonna, if anybody does a sound upgrade or whatever, makes the sound more, I guess you call it likable to more people's ears, more information through it. I think it'll be Deus, to be honest with you, because they've done so much. Deus has always been ahead of everybody, I think, just in the way that their machine is set up anyways. Because Craig, they've been out since 2012 or 2010, something like that. The Deus metal detectors.
I've had mine for about 6 years, so
yeah.
I'm not sure. I know it's been around before that. I started hearing about it, but
right.
About 2 years ago, I was talking to a guy in Britain, and it was like some kind of forum, and they were going back and forth between Deus and Mind Lab, and he said that he'd been a big E-Track guy, and he said all these rallies in England, Mind Lab had, God, they'd have 300-400 people, every time, it was 90% 90% Mind Labs being used.
Right.
And then he said that their customer service went down, and they had a real good headquarters in Ireland. They got rid of that, and the price started going up. And so he said, in the days, they just, they weren't getting good satisfaction, and customer service just went down. And so everybody kind of, all of a sudden, the Deus came out, and they grabbed the whole thing. So next thing you know, a few years later, 90% of the people are using Deus.
Yeah.
So, so when I knew a year, before I heard when, the Equinox was going to be a real light machine, and it was going to have, I said, with the new technology on the chips, it's going to be probably better than the Deus just because of the new technology, what they can do with it. So, anyway, I was pretty much right, But
oh yeah, you were.
But Deus is so far ahead of its time. I mean, as far as lightweight and everything. I mean, that thing was like a feather. And after you swing one, you go, why can't anybody? You don't want an E-Track or a CTX 3030. You call those heavy track.
Heavy track, yeah.
E-Track. That's what we kind of joked about. And I used the Nautilus, which weighed about 6 or 7 pounds.
Yeah, God, that thing is a brick. A brick
all day long. But I was a lot younger then too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have so many more options now, and the prices are coming down. I mean, if you were to buy a quality of a Equinox or a quality of a Quest, Pro, or these newer ones coming out, if you were to buy those 10 years ago, you'd spend $2,000 on a machine like that. I mean, really, for what it does. Because it's doing the same thing better than even the E-Tracks, the Whites. It's different. It's got the technology is different. You know, not that they don't find you some. I mean, God, I mean, there's still a lot of people that use the Whites machines and everything. I'm not beating them up. E-Track's found a lot of good stuff. HT Pro has found a lot of great stuff. It's just that, you know, it's just newer stuff, newer technology, newer circuits, newer processors, the way they wire them, everything. You know, it's just even the shielded coax. I mean, you know, triple shielded coax like we have on our 7x9 coils. It used to be where you get feedback through the, you know, you used to have to, you know, put the ferrite on the coil cables and stuff like that just for the EMI. And now EMI is pretty much, I mean, it is there, but we're able to tune it out so well. And, you know, with the Ballistool, with the Equinox, with the Deus, I mean, some better than others, you know, I'm not going to lie to you about it. But like, you know, I've seen Craig, and I've done it, you know, hunting right by electric fences or right over, you know, 10 feet from power lines and still be able to run a Ballistool, no problem. Where you take an E-Track in there or a CTX or a White, you're not going to get it. It's going to drive you nuts. It just wasn't designed to handle those, you know, conditions. Just like the Excalibur, a water machine at Beach Hunter ID. There was a fellow, and it's still on YouTube, showing the EMI that comes off of these machines, where the Beach Hunter's within parameters, but the E-Track, there's a hell of a lot of EMI coming off of it. But it doesn't, or what is the other one, Craig? The Prism from Garrett? I think it's Garrett. Oh my God, that thing would back everybody off.
Prism?
No, I'm not, wait a minute. Infinity from Garrett. It's the Pulse.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, that thing would, but I see it with the Ballistool. I can hunt right next to a person with one of those. But if you try to do it with any other metal detector that I saw out there that day, everybody was complaining to the lady, "Hey, get away from me. Go over there 30 feet away so I can run my metal detector because all I'm hearing is yours." It just blasting you with EMI, you know. And you know, but the Ballistool was able to, you know, I could hunt right next to her, no problem. You know, that's just technology upgrades, I think. I think the Equinox does. You said the Equinox does really good in EMI. I mean, I haven't used one myself, but
I was really impressed. That, you know, it pretty much knocked it out in my front yard.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I'm in the backyard. The other day, it started getting bad because there's another, like, phone lines and stuff all up and down the alley, and I just got up there and got right under it, held the machine up straight up, and hit noise cancel and brought it back down, and it was so quiet.
You know, I never even
no interference at all.
Yeah. I never even thought about it, Craig, when I did those review videos for Evan up there at Serious Detecting that with the Quest. I did those tests, and I was literally when I had the 9 and 10 inch dimes buried, and I was just showing what the machine would do. I was less than 3 feet away from a water pump that runs 220 into it, that I know has EMI. I was doing a video for another metal detector, and I had to back off of it. But with the Ballistool, I did EMI test right there because I knew it had it, but I didn't even think about saying it in the video. But I was right next to it, and it wasn't messing with the Quest at all. Which is, you know, it's a newer machine too. I need to ask Evan if they're selling those things here in the States. And I know they sell them overseas, but they were a good, solid machine. I think the Quest 20, it's set bottom of the line machine for Quest. It was, I think, a $200 machine. I was able to hit a 7-inch dime with no problem. And really, you know, I think with the Deus or most of the other ones out there, I mean, 9-inch dime is real thready, you know. But with the newer machines, we're able to hit dimes pretty deep. I know the Ballistool I can hit. Tom Jones was hitting them 16 inches down in the ground. I mean, it's incredible depth. I don't know what the Equinox can do. I mean, it does pretty damn good on it from what I've seen. But, you know, 10 years ago, they didn't have it.
Probably 9 or 10 inches, you know, depending on the recovery speed.
Yeah, it's solid repeatable, though. You can get it. Wasn't thready at all. You knew something was there.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, 10 years ago, before Deus, before, really back in the days of E-Track and White Spectrum, machines, I mean, a quarter at 12 inches was pretty difficult. I mean, you wouldn't get a solid VDI number and stuff. Now, hell, I mean, with the Blisstal, you can hit one at 25 inches just about down in the ground. Same ground, same everything. The technology's just better. It's more sensitive. It's better made, higher quality than it was, we'll say 2010, 2011. And I guess, Craig, we're showing our age now because we're almost, it's almost 10 years, I guess. But even in the 90s, oh, God. I mean, you were lucky to, well, you've said it before, Craig. You were lucky to dig a nickel at 6 inches, it seemed like.
Yeah.
It just wasn't there. I mean, you imagine 20 years from now, my God, I mean, if you have a machine that can't dig a 20-inch penny, it's going to be, like you bought a piece of junk, is what they're going to say. But, I'll never forget when I started doing, we started legitimately, well, we're legitimate anyways, but, digging shotgun shell tops and pennies and stuff at 13, 14, 15 inches down in the field, actual hunting, guys were emailing us. For years you heard them say, I wish this new machine would get more depth, The Blisstal came out, and they're saying, God, I'm so tired of digging holes, because they're having to dig that deep now. And, it can't have your cake and eat it too. If it's a deep penetrating machine, you're going to dig deep nowadays. I mean, as long as the day, where, oh my God, I got a 9-inch dime. Great. Awesome. Or, 8-inch dime. It's a great machine. Now we're up into, double digits, big time, so.
Yeah, I was going back to some of these spots, where, I had, I dug a lot of good stuff over the years, but nothing in 5 or 6, 7 years some of the times. And I went back. I was like shocked how much stuff I was digging up. I was like, I was getting worn out because all the stuff was so deep, And I was thinking, what, the other machines never even heard. Got that dime up there at the trenches, the Canadian dime over a foot or so. I don't know exactly, but it's right in the pathway and.
Craig, I've dug hundreds.
None of the other machines already heard it, and it was a good, it was a moderate, it wasn't even thready. It was a moderate signal,
I hunted those the property I hung the plantation property I hunted, Craig. I hunted the crap out of that for 2 or 3 years with the Whites machine, and I just was dead. And I got that V3 in 2012, and I was like, my God, I dug hundreds of targets, good targets, coins and relics and stuff, hundreds of more in the same area that I wasn't getting anything with the Whites. And then the V5 or 6 came out, and I got to the point, it was like 2 or 3 years later with the Blisstal V3, I wasn't really getting nothing else. Here the V6 comes out, and I'm digging. The first day I took it out there, I think it was, I dug 5 coins in a row. Down, working my way in the same area I've dug all this other stuff. It's amazing that, the jump in technology, because physically the machine never changed from V2, V1 even. It never changed the actual look of the machine or anything. It was all internal. And that's a lot impressive. I mean, you can change the color of a machine and the shape of it, but it ain't going to find no more relics than before or coins before. It's got to be on the inside of the machine, the electronics.
That's marketing. More marketing nowadays,
right?
It is kind of cool to have a neat looking machine now.
Oh yeah. I'm not, bling is everything, I know, but I don't care if it looks like a yellow submarine. I don't care. Shoot it if it's going to find me something better than the other machines, I'll use it. I mean, Pauline, guys laughed at me, but she wanted hers that camo pink, so I did the whole detector camo pink for that V5 or V6 or whatever. And it's like, hell, I used it on the beach. And the guy laughed at me. I said, yeah, but I'm digging a hell of a lot more than you are, brother. I mean, I don't care what it looks like. I'll use it. When my battery went out, I grabbed her machine and went, because it ain't about the way it looks. It's about how much it's going to find you. So.
I saw a funny one. I think I put it up on the hardcore page. I'm not sure. If I didn't, I'll put it up. But some guy modded put an old school shaft on a Equinox with like the F shaft.
Yeah. Oh wow, really?
Yeah, it looks pretty cool.
I don't know. These. I never thought. I mean, before the Bliss tool, I had a S shaft on my Beach Hunter ID. I went ahead and bought an Anderson shaft the regular straight shaft, the handle on top. But I never really liked S shaft. When I went to and I made a straight shaft for the Bliss tool, but I found I liked that S shaft for that machine. It just fits. It's ergonomic. I don't know what it is. It's not that much different than most of them out there, but something about that thing balanced really nice with that S shaft on it. But I couldn't imagine using it with another detector really. Having a choice. I like the T handle or whatever, the.
Well, I like this carbon fiber.
Right, right. That's sharp looking too. I like that.
It is. They got another one that's called Red Belly Black.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of that, mine is black with like little silver, flakes in it, and they got another one that instead of silver, it's red.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought I like black, better than I didn't want like red on it myself. Even though the red belly looks pretty cool.
Yeah, Craig or Gavin says it looked like a Sorrow shaft.
Yeah,
Gavin McGregor. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a lot of those.
Jeez.
It was funny back in the old days. They were all that tubular aluminum stuff.
Yep. It just they have all kinds of different combinations now. I mean, we went to the Ballista went to carbon fiber on the center shaft, but that didn't last long. I didn't really. I mean, it's lighter, but I don't think it's that much lighter to make it worthwhile. I mean, the machine only weighed, I think, with the 11-inch coil on it and everything, I think it only weighed 3.92 pounds. But it was very well balanced machine. But then, weight doesn't, if it's not distributed right, it's, I'm just using it as an example again, is like the AT Pro. And I did a coil weight from the balance point where you'd hold the machine at. And I think on the AT Pro it was like 1.5 pounds or more to the coil side. So it was really wear on your wrist. And most people say that about the machine. And the Ballista was like less than 9 ounces difference between the front and back. Matter of fact, the 11-inch coil and the control box, you can actually weigh them separately, and they read up as 1.2 pounds. So that was pretty neat. That the control box actually weighs as much as the coil does, and that was weird. I mean, I don't think he planned it that way. It just happened to be that way. But yeah, the coil side weight can really wear on your wrist bad.
Yeah, I can hold it with just the tips of my 4 fingers and don't even hardly use my thumb.
Right. Very ergonomic.
I was having problems a little bit with my wrist because I was holding it so tight at first, but then I realized I don't even have to do that. I can just
set it on your finger
point perfectly, and it's like you can move it so much better, and it doesn't wear on your arm as much either.
Exactly.
That was a pretty good deal.
Oh yeah.
I've seen people take other machines that were front heavy and put a counterbalance on the back.
Yeah, I did that with the Bliss tool too, just to see if I can do it with the 15-inch coil, to get the weight a little bit different on it. It works. I mean, you can actually extend. Matter of fact, Excalibur did that. When you buy an Anderson, I think it's an Anderson shaft for an Excalibur, it's an extended shaft out the rear of the machine, like within, I think it's like a foot longer, but it balances that machine really, really well. It's like I always talk. You pick up a 8-foot 2x4 by the end of it. Yeah, you can't do it barely with one hand. If you pick it up in the center, you pick it right up. You're just distributing the weight better. But that was the theory on the extended shafts on the rear of the machine. And I tried that with the Bliss tool. It didn't make much sense to do that. I mean, it was nice to be able to put a bag over it, though, if it rained. You know what I mean? Because the way they have it set up now, it's directly underneath the arm cuff. But
yeah, Anderson makes a good one for the Equinox, and there's another one that Ed Tech. I think it's Ed Detect. That's the one that's got the red belly. Mm. And then there's another one. It's called Popper, I think. And I think the shaft extends like 6 inches in.
Yeah.
And then there's the Telenox, which I got. I don't know if there might be some more, some other different ones, but those.
Oh.
There's another one that actually the coil has a little lever thing where it folds. You unlock it and it folds the machine in half on the shaft. Instead of telescoping, it just folds in half.
Right.
Shorten it that way. But
yeah, just so many combinations now. Anderson's always been good. I mean, I've bought a couple of their detector shafts for my White's machines and stuff. I enjoyed them. But Craig, I'll probably wrap it up for tonight. We do have a show tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. I know several of you guys tune in to that at 7 a.m. I don't know what the topic's going to be yet, Craig. We maybe just go off the cuff on that one, but I guess we'll prolong it. Sorry about the deep topic, guys. We just something that I was thinking about, and Craig kind of understood what I was getting at. But I think there's only good things to come, and more of these detectors as time goes on here. They're going to come up with some more combinations and different processors, this and that and the other thing, and it's not out of the realm, that's for sure, right?
One of the good things is there's a lot of competition now.
Oh yeah. Competition is good.
Yep. Love that competition.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening in tonight. You can check us out on Thursdays and Saturday nights at 8 p.m., or we do our Monday and Friday shows, Coffee with Derek and Craig, at 7 a.m. It's a shorter show, but we try to stick on one topic when we can. We have a hard time doing that, but we're doing pretty good, I think. And thanks for listening and tuning in. Like and follow the show. I think we're well over, 102 or 103,000 downloads and plays, and we're almost at 26,000 followers. It's awesome. I mean, I like to see that. Be sure to check out our Patreon page and become a supporter. We just started that up about a month or so ago, and we're still working with it a little bit. We're trying to make some tweaks, but I've just been pretty slam busy. But we're going to keep on keeping on with it, and hopefully, be able to delve into some different areas of metal detecting that, be able to include you guys more in. That's what we're really after. Be able to give you all a choice of what we do, how we do it, all that kind of stuff. So, thanks for listening. Be sure to tune in tomorrow morning. We'll talk to you later. Get out there, keep digging, and God bless.